Everybody, welcome back to the channel. Welcome to the channel if it is your first time checking us out. It's another snowy day in Colorado here, so hence the hat and puffy coat, trying to get warm inside for a little bit. Hey, today I wanted to talk to you about the first 5 things you should do if you're considering a custom home build. This is it's a question that we get a lot, so I'm gonna give you all the info right after this. All right, like I said, today, first 5 things you should do if you're thinking about building a custom home. You made the decision, what are the first 5 things I gotta do? It's a question that comes up a lot. You know, obviously people don't do this every day, so they're kind of trying to figure out, well, where do I start with this whole process? We get a lot of questions about this. Number 1, you can probably imagine what it is. It's the most important thing. You've got to set your budget and you've got to be realistic about it. You've got to say, hey, this is what my budget is, and that number should be the number that drives your whole entire project. Now, if you have a little bit of flexibility in your budget, that's great. Maybe you can make some add-ons throughout the process. Maybe once you start to go through design, you can say, gosh, yeah, I guess we can flex that much if we need to. But having that starting point budget is critical. And I'm gonna say this from experience, you've got to make sure that all the decision makers, i.e. husband and wife, spouses, whoever's involved, are all on the same page. You don't want to have one person with one impression and the other one's on a little bit different page, because as soon as you get into these next steps we're going to talk about, everything's going to go off the rails and usually ends up with some heated conversations from our experience. So budget is definitely number 1. Make sure you lay it out, make sure you're realistic about it, and make sure you have in your mind that that's the number that's going to drive the whole project for you. It's going to be a lot less stressful if you come up with that at the very beginning. And then, like I said, if you have some flexibility over time, that's great as you go through the process, but just set that initial budget and be really, really realistic about it. The next thing, and some of these steps could maybe change order a little bit. This is just what I think personally from personal experience and then working with clients, what typically works best. The next one I'm gonna say is builder. Now, some people might say, well, I don't even know where I wanna build my house at yet. And that could be true. But I believe that picking a builder, doing that interview process, doing that due diligence, there's so much that a good quality home builder can help you with throughout the process, through these next steps we're gonna talk about, that if you decide who you're gonna have build your house off the bat, early on in the process, and then leverage their assistance. I mean, you're paying them anyway, so you may as well leverage their expertise to help you find some of these other things we're gonna talk about. I think that makes a lot of sense to me. Now, it's not the most fun part of the process. Most people don't say, oh, I want to go interview builders today and ask a lot of questions and feel weird about these questions I'm asking and probably not like some of the answers I'm going to get. So it's not necessarily a fun part of the process, but I'm telling you, once you do find that right builder and you connect with them personality-wise, you're like, man, okay, this guy or gal or company, they're looking out for my interest and I trust them in everything that we're talking about. It's going to make the rest of the process a lot smoother and less stressful for you. Now, we've already done, I think we did another video on kind of things to try to think about when you're selecting a builder, so I won't go into all that, but just, figuring out a builder up front is gonna help you a lot. You've got a budget, you probably have a rough idea in your head about what you want your house to look like. So what I try to remind people is that honestly, in most regional geographic areas, quality custom home builders are getting material from like the same few spots. They're using the same few group of trades that do really quality work. So the price fluctuation shouldn't be a ton. You just have to find the builder that's a good fit for you and you feel like is on the same page with you. They're probably gonna be able to give you some rough pricing stuff at the beginning. And also at this early stage, it's typically builders, they're not gonna have you sign anything right off the bat. Now, once you start going through the design process and things like that, yeah, they're gonna probably ask for some money and for some stuff in writing, which is gonna protect you too. But at this early stage, it's not like you're locked in 100%. So, if you pick a builder early on and then after you work through some things, you're like, oh man, I don't know if this is the right fit for us. Don't feel bad about backing out and saying, hey, I'm not sure we're a good fit to work together. Just make sure you make that decision before you pay those non-refundable deposit funds, obviously. So budget number 1, builder for me, it's number 2. Like I said, you can kind of switch this up a little bit, but I think it's important for builder number 2 so you can leverage their expertise throughout some of these other things we're going to talk about. So number 3, the third thing, I think you've got to sit down again with everybody that's a decision maker in the process, and you've got to sit down and you've really got to talk through what are the must-haves? I say the draft must-haves because these might change a little bit throughout the design process, but what are the must-haves? If you want a rancher versus a two-story, that's a pretty big change in the whole plan if you switch that up midstream. So what are the must-haves? Do I want a rancher? Do I want it on a basement? How many bedrooms do I need? How many bathrooms do I need? Do I need an ADU as like a mother-in-law suite or a granny flat or whatever it is if you're gonna have a relative that's gonna be living with you part of the time? So those true must-haves, you've gotta get those lined out. And I think it's a good opportunity. Draft up what your wants are as well. It's kind of wants and needs, right? So what are the non-negotiables? We gotta have this. I don't care. And if that doesn't fit in our budget, we're just not doing this whole thing. So what are your must-haves? What are the things like, yeah, I think we need this. That's probably something we need. And then what are the wants? The wants and desires, right? Like what are the things that, hey, I think it's within our budget, we're really not sure, but here's what we really want in our house. Lay all that stuff out so everybody that's in the process is on the same page. And that's gonna greatly help that builder that you've initially decided to work with, help them really kind of assist you through the process of, hey, here's what you said your budget is, here's what reality is, here's the must-haves, we can do all that, here's some needs you think you need to have, yeah, we could do those, these wants, I don't know if we can do quite all of those, but we can maybe get some of them. So drafting up what those are, it's gonna really help out a ton. Like I said, enabling the builder to assist you. And then also it's gonna do a lot to make sure that really the project makes sense. We talk to folks every day that, hey, they say, here's what we wanna do, here's our budget. And unfortunately, we just have to say, I wish we could do that for you, but that's just not where the market is today, at least in our area. We had somebody hit us up, commented the other day, and I think they were in Georgia, if I remember right, and said, build price $200 a foot, had that quote from a couple builders. That's awesome. We can't, in Colorado Front Range, like we're not building at $200 a foot anymore. I wish we were. So depending on where you're at, that's gonna change a lot, and you might get more bang for your buck in different parts of the country. So anyway, all that to say, just drafting those must-haves, non-negotiables, and then outlining what I really think I need in this house and what I just want to have in the house, so you can really see up front if the project overall is gonna make sense. And as you start to go through that design process, it's just gonna make it a whole lot faster and a whole lot smoother. So number 3, draft up those must-haves, needs, and wants. The fourth thing, and this is one where people think, oh man, shouldn't we have done that a little bit earlier in the process, is location. Now I agree, a lot of times that's how it goes down, is people are out driving around and they see one of our lots and they say, this is a nice lot, I really like this. And that's kind of the introduction to the builder. And a lot of most builder-owned land is there's a contingency so that you have to build with that builder in order to buy that lot. So that does happen, where people are just out driving around and they see location that they really like, and that's how they get introduced to the builder. I put it number 4 on the list, more just kind of thinking about if you don't have the land yet, you don't have the location. I think it makes a lot of sense because, like I said, drafting out those must-haves, if you say, I have to have a walkout basement 100%, well, that's gonna obviously change the location as far as the specific lot that you could potentially build on. Yeah, you can really put a walkout anywhere, but man, the cost goes way up if that land doesn't naturally kind of tend itself towards a walkout. So the location, and also the builder typically has some connections in the area where if they don't have land available, they might have connections to help you obtain that land. They might have a real estate partner that they work with that might have a really good insight onto some land that's going to be coming available, or maybe it's available, maybe it's off market. So I think that the builder, a good quality builder that has good connections in the area, can help you with the location as well. And man, the last thing you want to do, we've talked about this before, I know, is the last thing you want to do is buy a lot that you purchased it ahead of time, then you go talk to your builder, the builder comes out to walk the lot and they say, oh man, you've got an extra $100,000 in excavation because of XYZ on this lot. Nobody likes to hear that, obviously. So a builder can, if you've kind of made that initial commitment with a builder, most quality builders are going to be willing to, hey, let's go out on an afternoon. I'll go walk the lot with you. I'll give you my 2 cents worth about it. See if this is going to make sense for you. And if it does, you can contract to purchase that lot. Maybe it's not through the builder, but through a private party. And the builder might give you some insight and say, oh man, this is where your budget's gonna get hit because of this specific lot. And then at least you have the information to make the best decision of, should I buy that lot or should I just pass and look for another one? So leverage the builder from that standpoint as well. And again, if you pick a builder up at number 2 and then you're looking for a location down at number 4, you have the opportunity to do that. like I said, a lot of times this isn't how it works out. You know, it's maybe somebody has a family ranch and they split off 10 acres so that one of their kids can build a house on it. Yeah, of course you already have the location picked out. It's kind of cut and dried. So it varies by situation, but I guess kind of just a scenario of where you don't have the land yet, I think this order makes a lot of sense. So figuring out the location, and does that location fit for your must-haves? If you say, I have to have mountain views, big thing here in Colorado, obviously. If I have to be looking at Pikes Peak every single day when I drink my cup of coffee at the little breakfast nook, and then you find a lot that you can't even see Pikes Peak from, probably don't want to buy that lot, obviously. So laying out those must-haves before you start looking for a lot, I personally think that process makes a lot of sense, but just understand it doesn't have to go in that order, and it by no means doesn't always happen that way. So budget, number one, builder selection, drafting up your must-haves, needs, wants, and desires, and then finding that location that fits and supports those must-haves. And then the last thing the last of the first five, I guess, the number 5 would be finishes. So this is going to be a huge, huge factor as it drives your budget. So probably at this point, you know, because you probably right now you haven't contracted with the builder probably, you know, you picked out one you think you want to work with, you're just kind of going through some stuff in your head, probably haven't inked your name on paper and provided those non-refundable deposits yet to really work through the design and architecture piece. But you can be thinking ahead of time, and I mean, the internet's amazing, right? You can get on the internet, you can look up, hey, here's some cabinetry I like, here's some light fixtures I like, here's some plumbing fixtures I like. Man, I really like that. I really like that hand-troweled wall texture versus the knockdown texture that you see on drywall in a lot of homes. So thinking through what you want those finishes to look like is gonna really help with A, staying on budget, B, expectation management is a huge thing. And again, if you've kind of started to work with a builder, they're probably gonna help you, at least to some extent with that. They're not gonna go all the way down the rabbit hole with you if you haven't committed to them yet, but they'll probably help you out a little bit, you know, try to kind of explain what they do and what their normal finishes are for the price point they build at. But just having an idea of what you expect those finishes to be like, and then that way you kind of, like I said, you can do that expectation management throughout the process. And to go back to number 1, it really helps you just, if you have that information that you can also chat with the builder about, they're gonna help you understand if that's within your budget or not. And then you can say, you know what, gosh, I guess I don't need the whole front of the house to be stone. Maybe we do some stone pop-outs so that architecturally it looks really good, accomplishes the same look, but you know, it's more within my budget. So think through those finishes, and again, this isn't where you're making final selections or anything. You're just thinking through, hey, what is it that I like? When I close my eyes and I think about this house, what does it look like as far as those finishes go? We always say jump on Instagram, get on Pinterest, scour the interwebs for all the information you can. A lot of people are visual, obviously, so look for all those finishing touches that really you're drawn to. And then kind of try to, most of us obviously, I know my wife and I certainly did, got to compromise a little bit, right? So you got to compromise a little bit on those finishes probably to get back down to the budget that you want to stay within. But doing that up front, at least to some extent, is going to help out a ton, especially whenever that builder's designer, hopefully they have an in-house designer, they come to you and they say, hey, remember, you've got 2 days left to pick out all of your cabinets. We told you 4 weeks ago, and you've just been thinking about it the whole time. Happens all the time. So if you can have a little bit in your mind ahead of time, it's going to help you out. It's going to alleviate some stress as well. So for me personally, that's what I would do. First 5 things. If once I say I'm building a custom home, I'd nail down that budget, and I'd have everybody that's going to be involved in the process, at least like I said, those that are monetarily involved, everybody on the same page so there's no confusion on what the budget is. I would at least initially figure out the builder that I'm planning on working with, do a lot of due diligence, interview a lot of builders, ask them about past projects, ask them to speak to past clients, make sure they're giving you solid information. You just have that good gut feel from them. Number 3, draft up those must-haves. And you may already have this, honestly, because you've been dreaming about this custom home for a while. The must-haves, needs, wants, and desires. Get those drafted. Know they're probably going to change a little bit because of budget and other things, but draft those up so everybody knows ahead of time what's important to everybody involved. Then the location. Make sure that the location supports what you have to have in a house, or what you're just like, man, I'm not willing to give up on this. You want those views, make sure the lot supports those views. You want your privacy, make sure it's a treed lot maybe. So just make sure that that location supports what you're actually looking for and that it's within your total overall budget, and leverage the builder to help you figure that out as well. And then the last thing is finishes. Like I said, just it helps you get ahead of the curve. It's going to alleviate some stress, and it's going to help with some expectation management on your end, and just it helps the builder figure out how to design the house for you. the more information they have, the better. So the more you can tell them about finishes you're drawn to, you really like, it's just gonna be all the easier for you as you work through that process. So those are the 5 things I would do personally myself. If this is good info, do me a favor if you would. If it's good info, subscribe to the channel, hit the little bell so you get all the little notifications and all that stuff. And as I always say, if you have any questions, reach out, call, text, email, hit us up in the comments. And especially if you are here in the Colorado area, we'd love the opportunity to see if we might be a fit to work with. We build all over the state of Colorado, based right here on the Front Range of Colorado and Colorado Springs. So until next time, thanks everybody.